The man who disappeared returned suddenly on the opposite side to that by which he had left. He made a sign with his head to the sentinel, who, turning the boat, said, "Sacomari." The Italian Sacomari is untranslatable. It means at once, "Come, enter, you are welcome. Make yourself at home. You are the master." It is like that Turkish phrase of Moliere's that so astonished the bourgeois gentleman by the number of things implied by its utterance. The sailors did not wait for a second invitation. 4 strokes of the oar brought them to land. Gaetano sprang to shore, exchanged a few words with the sentinel, then his comrades disembarked, and lastly came Franz. One of his guns swung over his shoulder, Gaetano had the other, and a sailor held his rifle. His dress, half artist, half dandy, did not excite any suspicion, and, consequently, no disquietude. The boat was moored to the shore, and they advanced a few paces to find a comfortable bivouac. But, doubtless, the spot they chose did not suit the smuggler who filled the post of sentinel, for he cried out, "Not that way, if you please." Gaetano faltered an excuse, and advanced to the opposite side, while 2 sailors kindled torches at the fire to light them on their way. They advanced about 30 paces, and then stopped at a small esplanade surrounded with rocks, in which seats had been cut, not unlike sentry boxes. Around in the crevices of the rocks grew a few dwarf oaks and thick bushes of myrtles. Franz lowered a torch, and saw by the mass of cinders that had accumulated that he was not the first to discover this retreat, which was, doubtless, one of the halting places of the wandering visitors of Monte Cristo. Okay, already a number of things I want to mention here on year 2 of the countdown of Monte Cristo. That's right, we are starting out year 2 strong, folks, as we are entering into, I was going to say uncharted territory, but we're not. We've been to Monte Cristo before. But let me start by acknowledging something about this chapter that I haven't yet, I don't think. We are in 1838 now. This is essentially contemporary times for readers that would have been receiving Monte Cristo upon its publication. This is 6 years before it was published in the French newspapers. So no longer are we really setting this in historical past of Napoleon times. It is recent times. It's not this is happening today, but it is like this has happened very recently. And I think that's an important distinction to make because of some references that crop up in this passage. First, let's talk about what's happening. Gaetano, Franz, they are arriving on the island. They are being greeted by what are called smugglers, greeted by a sentinel. And I've spent way too much time at the forefront of this chapter speculating about Gaetano, and I realize that's not, in the long run, that's not really helpful to do. I can't avoid speculating now and then, but the book is going to prove it one way or the other, so I think it's a bit better to try to focus on what is happening and some facts of the matter rather than trying to guess where the story is going to go. So what I feel like I should have been doing is, or at least that I will do here, is acknowledge Monte Cristo is Dante's territory. We have a sentinel here welcoming these visitors at nighttime with torches. So since we've jumped 8 years into the future, this is essentially Dante's setup, I'm assuming. I guess assuming and speculating are the same thing. But instead of trying to speculate on the captain's intentions, which this passage, I think, definitively proves that Gaetano is not part of this Monte Cristo crew, because it says here that Gaetano started to go in one direction, and then the sentinel was like, "Nah, don't go that way if you don't mind. Let's go over in this direction." So Gaetano Gaetano mumbles a sort of apology and then, abides by their request. So it doesn't seem like he is integrated into their crew. And I can't imagine it's still a ruse that he's putting on for Franz's benefit. So, taking facts for what they are, this is Dante's island, right? Which makes me wonder if Gaetano thought that this was still a bit of wilderness, or if he knows that this is kind of managed territory by Dante at this point. As he's talking to Franz, the whole point of coming to Monte Cristo was for better game. I wonder if Gaetano will be as surprised to see how managed this whole thing is. The other thing I wanted to bring out that I was alluding to earlier was the references that come up here. First, the Italian word saccommodi. Dumas uses here in an interesting way from a literary point of view, saying the Italian's saccommodi is untranslatable. It means at once, come, enter, you are welcome, make yourself at home, you are the master. It's like the Turkish phrase of Molière's that so astonished the bourgeois gentleman by the number of things it implied in its utterance. Dumas there just name-dropping Molière as a sort of parallel to making his point here about the word saccommodi. He's referring to the word bismillah. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I could very well not be, but comes from La Bourgeois Gentilhomme, Molière's play, which was meant to mock Turkish ceremony. Essentially, bismillah is a magical all-purpose word that means everything at once. And so by him calling forth saccommodi, he is... And its lack of translatability, he's basically saying it means a lot of things. But what I wanted to pull out there is what Dumas is doing by breaking the fourth wall and speaking directly to the readers as himself. That's not something we've seen a whole lot of in this book, but it is something that happens a lot in the Three Musketeers. And to tie this whole commentary together today, I'm wondering if the differences in style come from the fact that The Count of Monte Cristo is a much more contemporary book for people of 1844 compared to The Three Musketeers. I mean, the two books written roughly at exactly the same time, but Three Musketeers set in the 17th century as opposed to the 19th century. It feels, and it being a little more light and frothy and allowable for Dumas to go into those dalliances, I think it is probably easier and more expected for Dumas to be able to explain to modern readers, these little fourth wall breaks in the Three Musketeers to explain how someone is perceiving something, or, there's a lot of clashing of cultures there, the French and the English, the upper and lower classes, the guardsmen, the bourgeois, the aristocracy, the royalists, the church. There's a lot of clashing of different things. And so you can, I think, understand better that Dumas has a heavier hand in his narration of the story in that versus this, which is that a line like this kind of takes us out of the moment. It's Dumas, as I said, breaking the fourth wall. And I think he's doing it here as part of what we've discussed this chapter of resetting the tone a bit. We just went through a harrowing chapter in chapter 30, and now I think we are refreshing the browser, so to speak. Let's get a little bit different vibe going as we see what Franz is going to be doing on Monte Cristo. So that, seems subtle, but I think that is a circuitous way of saying that I don't fear for Franz. And it's weird that I even have to say that because of my distance from Dante at this point and unsure of his intentions and how vengeance has corrupted his heart. Who knows who Dante is? I don't. And I'm curious to revisit him to see what the hell's going on, Dante? What's going on with you? Why did you torture Morel so much? Okay, that's all I've got for today's slightly longer episode. Let's go into tomorrow. I'll meet you right here. You know where. Okay, until then, goodbye. The Countdown of Monte Cristo is part of the Gruntwork Podcast Network. This show is produced, edited, and hosted by Landon Solano. The original text of The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. Theme song by Magic Solo. If you want to support the show and others like it, visit patreon.com/gruntworkpod. Thank you for listening. See you tomorrow.